Yo. So welcome. This time we're going to chat about, how do we title this one? How we can understand creation. So we've talked through a few things, but now we come to this really tricky topic about creation. And it's tricky because, well, over church history, the whole course of it, the church itself is actually changed in the way that it understands creation. And in some sense, this actually highlights how some people approach faith and how some people approach science. So let's kick it off with the right thing. Genesis chapter 1 is the chapter that most people go to in order to at least start the conversation about creation. Now, it does say that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is Hashemayim v'ha'eretz in Hebrew. God created the heavens and the earth. And there's no statement about how big or small one or the other is. But it does start to show us something. In the time of which Genesis 1 was written, most people had a three-layered universe in their understanding. Now, what does that mean? Well, at the time of which most of the Hebrew scriptures were written, people had a three-layered universe. There was hell, earth, heavens. And in fact, if you ever Google online some pictures of Genesis 1, you're going to see that there's talk of like an underworld, and sometimes it has water. There's the earth, and then there's this firmament. There's the sky above, and that'd be the blue sky, which back in the day people thought that meant it was an ocean in the sky, and there's a lot of things to be said about that. But a three-layered universe is actually what some people still think today. Hell is below, earth is here, heaven is above, and that's as far as they want to think about the universe. Well, we got to go beyond that, because as humanity, as we've come to understand science better, as we've actually created better and better tools to observe the world, from microscopes to telescopes, we actually have had an updating every so often of how we understand the universe. So we had the three-layered universe for a while, and then we had, boom, a geocentric view. Now this means that at a certain point, people started to realize that, okay, the stars are moving across the sky. They're not fixed all the time. And so maybe the stars are moving around us, which means maybe the universe is spinning around the earth, the geocentric. And so the idea was that the heavens are spinning around the earth. This was a massive shift. This is a really big deal. And in fact, it actually caused some problems, because some people didn't know what to do with that understanding of the universe compared to a three-layered view of the universe. You see what I mean? And so what ended up happening was some of the first conversations about how do we understand Genesis 1 in light of the fact that the heavens are moving around us. They're not fixed, as if there's some canopy in the sky. So all of a sudden, we had to start doing some really interesting things. Let's keep going. Once humanity had this understanding of a geocentric universe, we started observing how the stars didn't always follow the same trajectory every single night. And very, very intelligent people started noticing there were kind of different stars that would show at different times of the year. And then they came to this realization. Boom, a heliocentric view of the universe. Now, this means that people started to understand, oh, maybe the universe doesn't circle around us. Maybe it circles around the sun. So helio, meaning sun, all of a sudden we're like, wait a second. We are actually going around the sun. It's not as though the heavens are going around the earth. And that caused another shift. But this shift in the course of human history was particularly difficult for religious types because for a long time, religious folk had the understanding God created the heavens and the earth, and then actually it wasn't a Christian, it was a non-Christian who came up with this. Ptolemy said that, well, maybe the earth is the center. And so when religious people that read the Bible very carefully, they thought that, okay, we're the center of the universe. God cares about us. And then all of a sudden to find out that the universe, or at least our solar system, was circling around the sun, not around the earth, it was really jarring. And so religious folk really didn't know what to do with this new insight. And so a lot of people actually started to leave the faith because they said, oh no, the faith has been wrong all along. We thought that we were the center of the universe. And so, in some sense, this is one of the starting points of there being some real friction between religion and science. You hear it? I mean, can you notice it? Well, this really wouldn't be that big of an issue if we would just change the way we think about Genesis 1. Now, I say this because when we read Genesis 1, we need to maybe stop and recognize, okay, what genre of text is this scripture? And many people like to understand Genesis 1 as a poem. And in fact, it even repeats in 7 ways, just like 7 stanzas of a song, of a hymn. And so this is maybe a creation hymn. And when you understand it as a hymn or as song lyrics or as something just rather poetic, you're prone to understand it very differently, and you're not going to maybe push back against science quite in the same way if you realize maybe Genesis 1 is actually poetry that is using metaphor, and let's not say metaphor, it's using just poetic language to try to communicate a point. And the point is, God created everything. But not only that, God created the environments, and then he said to the land and to the sea and to the sky, he's like, bring forth what you can. So God gives the creation the chance to be creative. He sets up the environments, and he lets them bring forth what they can. And then he's like, ooh, that's good, that's good, that's good. And so Genesis 1 is actually a full-scale affirmation that God created everything and that everything is now bringing forth what it can. Now, it's a very different understanding than if we were to try to use Genesis 1 to fight in our conversations about a geocentric universe, or a heliocentric universe. But in the past 150 years, we've actually come to a new understanding of the universe, and I do think this is going to cause another shift. We have this understanding of a universe that's still evolving or still becoming. Modern scientists like to think about how the universe is still in process. It's in the process of becoming. That ever since the Big Bang, which was an idea invented by a Catholic, things are in the process of becoming. There are still stars being born. There are still galaxies being formed. There are still black holes that are imploding and being reborn as suns. So we actually have around us at all time, and we've noticed this in our microscopes and our telescopes, that the universe is still in the process of becoming what it will be. Okay. Now you can kind of hear Genesis 1 in there. God created the environment, and then he let the environment bring forth what it can. So in some sense, Genesis 1 was anticipating an evolutionary understanding of the universe. Okay, now let's pause for a moment, because this causes a whole lot of conversations between, like I said, scientific folk and religious folk. And to me, the issue gets really resolved when we can understand that Genesis 1 is poetry, so it should influence the way that we read it. But then also we should understand that science is still evolving or trying to constantly improve its understanding of the universe. But we don't need to be the type of people that fight about these. You don't have to be one of these figures that chooses one over the other. And in fact, there might be a way of actually seeing that the two things are naming the same thing, just using different vocabulary. And that's actually the way I like to think about it. Now, what we will chat about at some point is how your understanding of the universe will also, get this, impact the way you understand what's right and wrong. The church, for a long time, has understood the doctrine of creation as not just being about how God created the universe, but also how are we supposed to live in this universe. So I guess that would be an open-ended question for you. What do you think morality looks like if you have a three-tiered view of the universe? Hell, earth, heaven. What do you think your understanding of ethics looks like if you have a geocentric and everything circles around what we do here on earth? What do you think ethics looks like when we realize or have this worldview that says we circle around the sun? And what do you think ethics looks like as a Christian in a universe that's still in the process of becoming? That's very interesting thought. So we'll come back to that. Okay? But for now, just maybe stop and realize the church has actually had a long dialogue with how do we understand creation, not just according to what it says in the Bible, but also according to what it says in modern or the most recent scientific theory. And just remember, they don't have to be in competition. There might be a way that we can actually let both of these languages, both of these vocabularies, both of these ways of talking about the universe to work together. And that's the task I think every generation has to figure out. Okay? So this is just the start. Let's continue with this later on. All right? Cheers.